Welcome to the Tax Break Breakdown with your hosts Greg and Doug. Sit back and relax while they review current and upcoming childcare tax credit programs employers can take advantage of. Now, on to the show.
It's always going to start like this. Welcome, everybody, to episode 4 of the Tax Break Breakdown with your hosts, Greg and Doug, now known as Grug. Today's episode, we are titling Childcare Subsidies or Stipends. They're both used interchangeably, taxable or tax-free. That middle part is not part of the title. So it's episode 4, Childcare Subsidies or Stipends, taxable or tax-free. I did our last count, Douglas. We have crossed the 50 podcast subscribers, 49 more than you thought.
See how many email addresses my mom signed up with.
And 453 subscribers to the newsletter on LinkedIn, which I didn't think it'd get to 453 that quick. That's pretty cool. I wonder who they are. I don't know. I'll have to check them out.
453 times.
It's actually pretty cool to see. I really want to dig in to see, first of all, how many people do we work with signed up? And how many friends and family signed up? But I know that there's some people that have never heard of us, and maybe they found us through LinkedIn, or maybe now we're on Apple Podcast, we're on Spotify, we're on Google, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on like 10 different ones. This is definitely a resume builder.
Yeah.
Published
it's
across all podcast platforms.
Your distribution skills are fantastic. I appreciate
They
it.
are, right?
It's all you. It's all you. It's not me.
I know. But let's get into the Grug fact.
Yeah, the Grug
Why don't you
fact.
take this one again? You've been taking them. So Grug fact.
Yeah, so this one, wow, it took us, we had our enlightening moment where we found out, a lot of details, but this one took us a little bit longer, but we have, or at least our wives drive, but we own the same cars.
Yep.
Black Kia Sorrentos. Was a good choice then. They haven't gotten stolen, so that's good, but definitely some issues recently around that, so maybe not long-term the wisest choice. We'll see what happens when insurance renewals come around, but yeah, the same year, color, model Kia Sorento lives in both of our garages.
It's crazy. It is crazy. I think next year we may trade it in for the Kia Carnival. Have you seen that one? Kind of looks like an SUV minivan.
Bigger third row, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the one that has the there's a minivan that has a vacuum cleaner in it. Like in
It's like
the car.
It's like Pontiac Aztec levels of convenience. Used to have a cooler.
I think it's
the center console was a cooler.
Yeah. So that's the Grug fact of the day. We got a couple more. I forget the last episode we came up with another one. But just weird things that I don't know, coincidence, destiny, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the news. We got a couple news things for the industry, childcare wise, benefit wise. The first one being a call back to our first episode, which is crazy to say, right? First episode.
Yeah. First episode.
Because now we're on number 4. 4 out of 4. This is it.
Yeah.
It's 24 than we thought.
We've quadrupled the amount of episodes.
For those that are on our YouTube channel, which I didn't bring that stat into it, but we have 2 subscribers. That's 2 more than I thought. That's you and I. I want to show for those that are on YouTube, I'm gonna show here. Calling back to first episode, we talked about Indiana. They were giving $25 million away. Like we did the episode, and we were like, "Hey, you have a week to apply." Part of that episode was also like, "Hey, childcare is a problem. Why isn't the government doing anything about it?" And we were like, "They are doing something about it, and it's real." And here's Indiana. Well, guess what? They released the list, and I'm showing on the screen the companies that got approved. I don't think it totals up to 18 million. I thought it was 25. It's 18.1 million. 64, but here are some of them. And you'll see here Plymouth Community Schools. They got $350,000 in Marshall County. Avanti Group, which I think is hospitality. I think I came across them in one of my past gigs. 349,000. Navarre Hospitality Group, 200,000. United Way of Marshall County, 750,000. What else here? Laporte Community School. Which one?
The American Licorice Company.
Where do you see that one?
American Licorice Company. It's right above.
Oh,
yeah.
American Licorice Company, $200,000. Are you a licorice fan?
I mean, if they're supporting, working parents, I can be.
Did you know that American Licorice Company is like Sour Patch?
Wait, really?
Red Vines. Oh, wait. Sorry, not Sour Patch. Sour Punch.
Sour Punch. Yeah, but I'm here for those too. Yeah.
No, Red Vines are my Red Vines. The big one from Costco.
Yeah.
You got me.
Right there. Yeah.
So
one next time I go specifically because of this now.
So isn't this cool to see? $18.1 million, 64 organizations, and there are we talked about this. The application was super simple, and they got 750,000, 490,000, and this was the one that could go towards offering on-site childcare, reserving childcare seats, ton of different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was basically if it's childcare related and for your employees, it qualified.
Wow.
It's amazing to see, but it's also how crazy is that turnaround? Right? A month, right?
Yeah.
It was about a month.
Do you think they already knew?
I mean, I'm sure some of the applications were in early, things were fast tracked, but I mean, we talked $25 million pool. I mean, how many times have we seen some of these funds pop up, right, and they don't get used at all, right? So there's a $25 million fund, even 18.1 million, is fantastic utilization on that front. For getting that money up before. So I mean, it's really exciting. It's great when we see it go quick, right? There's the application. We're going to get it in hands. We're going to make an impact fast, and I think that's part of the program being broad. So not shocked by it because it was structured so well and broadly for help for employees, but it's really cool to see it turn around that quickly. I don't think we've ever seen something turn around that quickly.
Not that quick, but the CHIPS Act, I think we talked at one of our episodes about what company was it? There was another company that got a good amount of money. There was another announcement that was 17 hours ago for 162 million. If you can guess the company, I will buy you a tub of licorice. Don't look it up.
Right, I don't.
Okay. If I guess it, you gotta buy me a tub of licorice.
You guess it. You guess what you know, and I will buy you licorice.
Okay. Microchip Technology. They got $162 million, basically to expand the facilities in Oregon and Colorado. They do microcontroller units, other critical technology. And the goal is to impact the industry, local communities, and create 700 jobs. That's interesting, though. 162 million for 700 jobs.
I mean, but is that just at the plant? Because I know like the CHIPS Act as a whole, right? Like you have to support construction and things like that. So maybe it's not factoring into that total number
Yeah,
with
that's
it.
cool though to
But
see because this was launched last year, and now look. Oh, and actually, about 2 years ago, because we've talked to a couple big chip companies, and their applications
yeah,
are still being reviewed. So, but this is
yeah,
the
it's
second
it's
one in the 3-digit million.
it's starting to get through, right? And I think that's the exciting piece of it is there was a
Yeah,
lot of waiting with the CHIPS Act, especially around childcare, and that actually starting to get through now is exciting.
it's crazy how many dollars are there. Um, I'm trying to get into our next one, which is Benefits Pro. For those that are not familiar, Benefits Pro, really cool website. You can guess what it's for benefit professionals. But this article, obviously, it's January, and so
Yeah,
everybody's coming up with their predictions for the year, right?
yeah.
Everybody's doing their shake weights. Everybody's getting back into their treadmills.
Did you
Everybody's
say treadmills?
tre-
Treadmills? Is that
treadmills.
oh
Is it
treadmill? I heard treadmills. Is that like
treadmill?
while walking while eating?
Well, it's recorded. We can go back if we need.
Yeah.
A tread. We can go back to see if I said it wrong or right. But this one is interesting. They gave a couple predictions. Earned wage access is interesting. Obviously, like improving the employee experience. That's like has always it's been there for a
Yeah.
while. But the one that we're interested in, I'll read it. In 2022, we expect employers to continue to prioritize financial benefits, starting with emergency savings. That is great because there are a ton of stats that say employees, especially frontline workers, can't even afford like a $400 bill,
Yeah.
like an emergency.
Yep.
Increasingly, employers and providers will emphasize less traditional financial benefits, particularly student debt repayment and caregiving. That's where childcare comes in. And far-sighted leading employers will begin to think beyond employees' near-term financial security toward long-term wealth building and the ways employers can enable wealth creation outside of a retirement plans. Which reminds me of a startup that's coming up called
Hmm.
Salt Labs. I've seen them, and
Yep.
they're revolutionizing this idea that frontline workers um, traditionally are they work, but they don't really reap the benefits only through a paycheck. They're already living paycheck to paycheck. In fact, I think the stat was they were spending 102% of their income a year, and
Yep.
so they have nothing. You think about how many hours a full-time waitress works, and then at the end of the year, they have negative to show for it, and so they're designing this idea of converting like a loyalty program like Miles, but into employees and supporting them with turnover. I think it's a fascinating concept, but this is I sent this to the founder. Um, I'm sure he's well aware of it, but it is so fascinating that companies are going to start to think about how do they help employees build long-term wealth, and the way that this one is set up, it's like it's interesting on how they do it. I can't wait to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I know we've spoken around a little bit, and I think it comes down to right, like it is hard right now to attract and retain frontline workers for all of these reasons, right? Baseline security, long-term wealth, family planning, home ownership, all of these things are getting harder and harder, right? As generations come through, and it's you know where does that responsibility lie? And part of why we started this is like where are the breaks, where are the things that we can leverage to make an impact in those populations, because it's not getting easier, right? Like
Nope.
we keep like the reason Salt Lab's a great example, right? In child caregiving space, you look at even student debt repayment, like these are huge like systemic problems that maybe we'll get around to like solving as a country one day, but in the moment, right, like it's what can we do in the meantime, and how can it impact organizations that need it to impact their employee base.
Yep. Well, that is one of their predictions here, holistic approach to financial benefits, and so they're including caregiving as part of a holistic approach. I mean, when we look at share of income, I mean, I think the last report we did, what was the share? There was a analysis we did in like some rural areas. The share of childcare expense to like monthly income, was it 25, 30 something percent?
30%, yeah, of total
Yeah,
income, and it's like how do
maybe
you
more.
adjust that? So
That's one
it
kid.
right, it's one kid. And there's like this is a narrow view, right? Like this is in like holistic financial benefits, but we look at the impact, right? Especially you get into like social determinants of health, right? Okay, like long-term community stability, like all of these things. I know we talked about like rural areas again, right? Like on that episode, it's like there's so many benefits to putting these things in place that are beyond just the dollars of it.
Yep. Next in the news, before we get to our main topic here, this one's in NPR. Title is
Yeah,
To Tackle Poverty, More States Will Offer Bigger Child Tax Credits in 2024.
you
So
know
I,
what that
I
means?
believe, what does that
That
mean?
means we're gonna have more episodes.
I hope there's at least, let's see, if we do one a week, four a month, 40, 48. Yeah, there's enough. If each state does it, finally. But this one's interesting, right? Because these are going to be at the state level. There is still the IRS Form 8882, which is at the federal level. And then federal funding is also going to state to distribute. They do a lot of this on like supply building. They do a lot of programs to help support child care centers. Like that money flows from the federal to the state, to the counties and cities. And then there's the
Mhm.
federal tax credit. And then on top of that, now states are doing this. So New York was one of the latest where they are basically kind of matching that 150,000, but they're doing it on the state income tax level. So there's like so
Yep.
many layers to this, which is really interesting. This article talks about Vermont is one of the 14 states that now have a child care tax credit. 10 of them have either created or expanded the benefit in 2023. 11 states offer the full credit to families with the lowest or even no income. Some state
Mhm.
credits are available for immigrants, even those without legal status. Vermont made that change to help the migrant workers who are the backbone of its dairy industry. And so this is also talking about tax credits at the employee level. There's like so many levels of tax credits. Somebody should just put all this together, don't you think?
It never crossed my mind. We certainly have
Never
not talked.
crossed your mind.
We
We have
certainly
not.
have about it ad nauseum multiple times. Um,
Yeah, and the cool thing, I mean, about this one, expanding these benefits in states has bipartisan support.
yeah,
Interesting. I
it's
mean,
been one of the interesting
Chip,
things. I know looking at it, we've seen it in blue, red, purple states, right? Like there's it's a problem that crosses party lines, right? Everybody's got kids, and everybody
yep,
needs to work, and well, most people at least need to work, and like it's tough, right?
yep,
Rural, metro, whatever it is difficult to afford it, especially when we get into frontline workforces, and so
yep.
that kind of feeds into what we're talking about today. Is okay, you're going to support as an employer, you're going to support tuition, right? Childcare tuition for your employees in some way, shape,
I
or
mean,
form.
that's one of the first questions you got to ask yourself. To what extent, or what's our role going to be, right, in the solution? And should your role include helping your employees financially, which is really the first thing you need to tackle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Then
you
it's
know, I
like,
can't just
okay, do we just give people money? Like, what do I give them money? Is it taxable? Is it not taxable? You and I are on the opposite sides of this one.
a little bit. I mean, I think there's value. I think we process it different ways, right? And what we're going to look at is right is there's ways that it can be taxable, right? Imputed income to the employee, and obviously affect payroll taxes on the employer side. And there's ways to avoid that, but there's a catch, right?
There is a
So
catch.
there's a catch. So I tend to be more in the camp of, let's be broader and focus on the support rather than the potential savings of doing so, because I think the ROI is so significant. Um, but you would be on the other side of, hey, there's a way to save money here, and that gets Greg
Um,
excited.
I'm I advocate for getting funds into employees' hands, but if there's a way that you can even make those dollars go a little farther, that's where you got my attention. So we're going to talk about how you could do that.
Yeah.
So what is one thing that almost every employer has that only about 1% of employees use?
Well, I was going to say what I was going to say, but are you talking about a dependent care FSA?
A DCAP account, yes, dependent
Yes.
care account. Similar to an FSA, HSA, but for dependent care. And keep in mind, dependents are not just children, they're also elders.
Mhm.
And so some of the benefits, so let's say I'm an employer and I'd like to give employees $5,000 to go towards childcare. So you have a couple options. Just give it to them directly, or one option is you can put it into a dependent care account. Why you could do that, there's really a lot of different reasons, but two primary ones. It's um, non-taxable income to the employee. So $5,000, right? If you're taking 30% hit, it's not a lot of frontline. That's $1,500.
Mhm.
Basically, you would save in taxes if you're paying 30%. But then also for the employers that are listening, you pay FICA taxes on that. But in this case, if you gave 5,000, you actually wouldn't pay FICA taxes on that $5,000. So you would save about $380. And that's
So,
the area that I think is fascinating, that this can create a win-win for the employee and the employer, but no, not a lot of people are thinking about it from that angle.
so,
There's
well,
cons to
okay.
it, which I can
Let's
hear.
say, yeah,
I can hear.
yeah. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? We can save money on both sides of it. Why is it 1% then, right? If almost every employer has it, and why is it 1%, right?
I know why.
What? Yeah.
So, well, there's a couple different reasons. First of all, you can only elect for a DCAP during open enrollment. That's one time a year unless you have a life change event.
Hmm.
And by the way, there's ways to qualify for a life change event that many people don't know. I'm not going to get into it. I don't know the full rules around it, but I think like was moving one that,
There's more, right? There's something I remember we looked into it like a couple months ago.
yeah,
First really like circled around this in depth, and there are ways, right? Like the hurdles are the red tape around it, right? So there's when can you enroll, right?
yeah,
And then there's what can you use it for, right? Um,
yes,
you know, this has
and the
very
the funding of it is an issue, right?
of it. So most employers like they have them, but they're not funding them, right? So it's
Well, talk
the
talk a little bit about that when you say not funding them.
Yeah, so as an employer, you can choose to fund, right, a dependent care account, right, and you put that money in. The employee can use it, right, towards tuition, right, eligible benefits, whether it's for child, elder care. Great, okay,
On day one.
but
That's the difference on day one.
if it's funded, but for the most part, employers don't fund that, or maybe will contribute like a small amount, or maybe a matching amount. And so what you're asking employees to do is to go out of pocket, right? And to save that money as a pre-tax deduction off of their paycheck. Again, there's a tax savings it's there, but then you have to submit, right, for that reimbursement. And that reimbursement can only be used, when we talk about childcare, right, for a licensed facility, or if you're using like a nanny or a sitter, right, like in-home care, you have to have their tax ID, right? There's very strict requirements on like what you're submitting to get
Yeah.
reimbursed. And I go through this, right? I use mine, right? And I'm glad to have it, right? I fund it myself. The last time I submitted a claim, it took me 3 weeks and going back and forth, right? And again, we use a daycare facility, licensed facility franchise. Like the software struggles to even get out like a receipt. that they have that has all of the information that the dependent care account provider needs, right, to do it. And so when you think about, right, two things there, right? How long are you actually out that money, right?
Yep.
Is a pain, right? The burden of having to submit, get the receipt, right? That like there's some uptick there, right? You have the narrow window, right? Or perceived narrow window. We know it's broader, like when you can actually enroll and elect and make changes to this. And then, right, we think about it through the lens of a frontline worker, right? Like being paycheck to paycheck. And, I can take myself back to those days and in working, talked about hospitality work, right? Like, serving, working behind the bar, right? Even busing, right? And, you know, I needed every single one of those dollars to come into my, like, to go
I
into
know
my
how that
pocket.
is.
You
Yep.
know? Right? And so to ask somebody to put that aside, right, even for that, right, and especially, right, we look at in the studies we've done, right, in the assessments we've done, frontline workers, vast majority leverage their friends and family network that would typically not be eligible, right? I don't think there's a lot of people submitting like grandma's, right, or their mom's, social security number to their FSA provider to get, a reimbursement back on this. Can you do it? Yes. Like, but does it have
Yep.
implications? It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And that's my struggle with it is like it is a great thing, but does it actually help the people that need it most? And I think with how much red tape there is today, I have not seen, and I really hope to see it at some point, someone who can like really solve this, right, and make it like so turnkey that it will affect frontline populations. But to me, it's just not there yet.
Yeah, I think I'm living into the future because I can see how much better it could get, and that's why I'm such a like it's my entrepreneurial hat that's speaking where I'm like I can make this we can make this better, but let's put an example to this for those that might not know. If
Mhm.
you as an employee elect $5,000, your basic and the employer takes it out basically per paycheck. So you're
Yep.
taking out about $416 from your paycheck, right? So $416 a month is going to go into this account. So your paycheck is already down 416. Then you still have to pay for childcare that month. So now you're out, and let's just say it costs $1,000. So now you're out $1,400 for that month. Then you have to get the receipt because the services have to be rendered. Then you
Yep.
submit it, right? And then you can get that $416 back. But by the time you get that money, then another 416 is taken out of your paycheck that month, right? And so it's like frontline workers just don't have. First, I don't think the companies that do decaps um, have great education around it. It's a very legacy product. There's a
Yeah.
lot of like, yes, they say there's a lot of marketing and education. It's complicated to try to teach folks that you're going to put the money in now. You're going to save later when you file your tax, which is a year away. You're still going to have to pay for childcare, and then you can get a reimbursement, but that's okay, right? It's like so complicated. I think the one way an employer can make this easier is to treat it like an HSA and just pre-fund it on day one. Or, and by the way, we've talked with the largest decap provider out there. There is no like technology reason why this can't happen. They literally told me we just click a button, and then there's no
It's an inertia.
legal reason why you can't.
It's an inertia thing. It's always just kind of been there, right? And I think the
Yeah.
HSA comparison is apt, right? Because that's, I was actually working in the health insurance space, right, when consumer directed plans like came out, right, and HSAs really kind of became a thing, and got to watch that evolution of this like very lightly utilized piece that had been around, like started getting uptick, and companies found like, hey, we fund this. This is actually like it's a way to reduce medical costs, right? And our medical costs for benefits, but it also is a huge benefit to employees, right? And it
Yep.
and it works, right? Especially um, a lot of it was targeted more towards initially towards like younger, healthier people, right? Some of the same demographics are going to be having kids, right? And it's like, hey, like you don't have a ton of medical expenses yet. Like these are actually like good plan designs for you, and we're going to help fund, some of that, right? And we've seen it become much more standard, right?
Yep.
To see high deductible health plans that are HSA eligible. There's been a ton of innovation development to make that process smoother. Still a lot of legacy HSA providers out there too, where I've had similar experiences, but I've also seen some really clean stuff and great education for it. So I agree with like your future view, right? Like this will get like I think solved at a point, and it will become easier, and we will see companies adopt it, but we haven't quite hit the apex like of that hill in my mind. Like I think
Yep.
it's still going to be a barrier, and I think it's going to take time to filter down, which really takes us more towards you know what I love, which is direct stipends, is putting cash in people's hands,
Well, before
right?
we jump into that one,
Okay, fine.
I still wanted to call out as an employer, I think they would get a lot more uptick if they pre-funded. So all employers just know for to make it non-taxable to your employees and to make it basically non-taxable to you to not pay your FICA, just put it in. You can put it into a decap account, but fund it on day one. Or we've actually seen employers do it per quarter. You could
Yeah,
do that as
quarterly.
well, but just don't require your employees to do it. There is a little bit of risk, right? Like the model has been proven for HSAs that you generally will come out ahead. You won't spend. I don't think it's been tested on the decap account side because people always need childcare, but not everybody needs healthcare on day one, right? So it would take some testing, but what we've seen on the turnover is that it's basically worth it. So this is a great way to take advantage, which is all about the tax break breakdown, is to take advantage of it. So that's available. Do that on day one. And then, yes, somebody, which we've talked to this gentleman before, Tom Daly, he actually works at NFP. I know that he's working on how do you make this easier for everybody, like for the employee, for the employer, for the child care provider. There's some really cool things that I think you could do, and I'm excited for it. Now let's jump into the other view of the taxable side. So if you
Give
want to give
people
somebody
money.
money, if you want to give people money from an employer, obviously it's imputed income. Doug, talk a little bit about it.
I am not a patient person at any facet of my life, right? If I were putting this in place as an employer, I want to see the impact of it almost day one, right? And the easiest way to do that is to take the restrictions away. It's part of what I loved about the Indiana program, right? To go back to episode
Yeah.
one and right the top of this episode, right? Like it's the broader it is, the shorter the time to impact, the quicker we're going to get relief right into employees' hands, and specifically those that need it the most, which is frontline employees, low wage hourly workers, right? Give them money, right? Now, what that does is allows them to use it and leverage like the totality of available childcare supply that's available. Let's go back right to rural childcare. There's no providers, right? No licensed providers in an area, right? Where they're all full. You could fund, a decap, and there's not even anybody eligible that you could utilize it. But if people are leveraging their friends and family network, you can we've seen programs where you can even leverage like a spouse that's staying home, right,
Okay,
and
I thought
use
you were
that.
gonna say diapers.
No, I was not going to say diapers. So you get really broad with it, right, and you can kind of treat it like a little bit more of an LSA and some of these things. We focus like specifically on care, right? Um, which I do think you can paying a diaper is going to have an impact, but for the most part, right, when we talk with employers, right, it's one of two things, right? It's always turnover, right? Turnover, retention, right? Attraction, retention, like all of that. But the one that really moves the needle, right? We have these conversations, right? Is absenteeism, right? I can't show up to work because I don't have care, right? And so like directly
And
funding.
what employer, right, is gonna say, it's a touchy subject. Like I literally cannot come to work because I don't. Like it just creates this like hard decision for managers, for HR leaders, because like you're empathizing.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's like, but you have like, and then the other side is like, I can't afford. Like it's such
yeah,
a hard like topic.
yeah. It's incredibly difficult, and the easiest solution to move the needle is give people money, right? Like help support it, right? We talked about it, right? I think from again in the rural standpoint, right, is building the community. It's really building that profile. It's also right now a massive differentiator as an employer when you look at
Yep.
impact, because not many do this directly, right? And, we focus on childcare, but there's elder care, pet care too, right? And I think that's what you're seeing in the benefit pro article is like, this is actually a huge need, right? The financial impact of these challenges in caregiving is growing year over year, and it's not getting easier, right? It provides, right, you know, again, the state tax credits, some of these things to help fund some of these programs they're going to chase. Like it's a massive opportunity for employers to differentiate, right,
Yep.
and attract, retain, the talent they want, especially in some of these like frontline workers where we've had wage compression. How do you become, right, more attractive as an organization? For somebody who can walk down the street and maybe make $1 more an hour or the same
Yeah.
wage, right? Like it's there's a lot more parity coming to the space, and it's hard. Right? We've had those conversations. Now, those are the pros, right? You can broadly define the program. Um, they have incredible uptake. We've launched some of these programs and we see 20-30% utilization just for childcare, right, of the total employee population,
Yep.
right? And
Versus
that,
1% for a decap.
for decap, right? It's a
In
significant
today's
difference.
numbers, I'm talking.
Today, right? Eventually, right, we
If you
get
can
this like
mix, yeah,
world, we can put these things together. I think that's like ultimately the goal is, can we get this utilization with the tax savings at the end of the day?
yes,
The
that
cons
is
are,
what we're talking about.
it's
Cons.
taxable.
Oh, here we go. It's taxable.
So
That's a huge con.
it is a huge con, but here's my thing with it, right? Because again, right, I want like I look at this and I want it to be progressive. To me, a decap is regressive, right? It's utilized typically by higher wage earners because they have the capital, right,
In today's world,
to to outlay in today's world, not Greg's future world. Okay.
I'm talking Greg's future
Um,
world, but yeah,
okay. Greg's future world may be different, right? But when we look at a stipend program, to me, it's progressive, right? Because the tax brackets are progressive. So our lowest earners, right, are going to pay the lowest amount of imputed income, right,
yeah.
on these stipends. So it's automatically progressive. Now again, there's loss in that, right? That there's money that's going like to the government, right, rather than the directed this, right? So I get that piece of it, but it is a lot more accessible for families. Um, the downside is it is taxable. There's a little bit more of a burden, right? How you track
Well,
those.
so let's put some numbers to this. So it's
Okay.
the same $5,000, right, that you put into a dependent care account. At the end of the year, the employee is going to actually get money back because they're going
Yep.
to be able to get $1,500. In the stipend model, they may get a bill for $1,500.
Depends on how
If
they're
they're not
processing
taking
it.
it
Right?
up.
If you aggregate it as
Right.
an employer, put it all in at the end of the year, right? But if it's on each check, right, and you think of, you'll focus on 23 tax brackets, right? Okay. Um, a frontline worker, right, under $44,000 or $44,725, right, is a single filer, right? It's a 12% tax rate.
So $600 on the 5,000.
600
Yeah.
bucks. The first 11's 10, right? It steps up, and so again, right? It's not nothing, but right, if it means you got a benefit, right? Your net benefit in that case, right, is what,
4,400.
4,400. That's better than
Yeah.
zero because you can't afford a decap.
Yeah. I worry that maybe some employers don't tell their employees and they get the bill at the end of the year. I know that those that we've worked with, we let them know.
Yeah, I think the
At the
communications.
end of the day, put both solutions together and you have a win-win-win for everybody. And that is what we're going to work on. And I think that's going to probably conclude the episode. So thank you, everybody. Unless there was, so
You're gonna fight.
I cut you off. I cut you off. Were you going to finish? Did you have something else to say?
No, but it's listen. No, we can fight. That's fine. Oh, I thought you wanted to fight.
No, I was going to try to wrap up. I know that our last couple episodes were like 50, 60 minutes. This one
Yeah,
we
we
were
could
shooting
just-
for 30, and we're up just about 40. But it was a cool topic. Recap. First of all, the Grug fact, same cars. Indiana, people actually got money. There's more tax credits going to more like through states for employers
Yep.
and for employees. 2024 prediction, caregiving is going to be a financial benefit. It's considered under a financial benefit. And then whichever way you look at it, Doug's way, my way, the Grug way is both ways.
Yes.
That was a good outro. So we're gonna cue the music and throw your pen. Everybody have a great weekend. Happy New Year.